Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. I am your handsome host, the NFL genius, and I'm super hyped because our NFL lists are back. I was waiting on it. I was waiting for the opportunity. We did the math today. We thought it was going to be next week. It's this week. Kickers week, baby. We got our NFL kickers list, top 10. We got NBA discussion. The draft is tomorrow night. Victor Hall of Fame Wembanyama, already put him in Canton. They already said he was better than David Robinson. They said if he's not Kareem, it's a failure. It's kind of wild. But we got Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson. I can't wait for the NFL draft. We got MLB talk. Listen, there's a kid on the Cincinnati. How about the Cincinnati Reds, Charlie? Before I interview, how about the Cincinnati Reds? Ellie, that kid is fire. We're going to talk
electric.
About electric. NBA trade talk also. We got a lot to get into this week. In my upper left corner, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
What's going on, man? I'm feeling good. It's about to be a good show.
I feel like it's going to be a great show. In the upper right corner, I got Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, Bill Shallcross. What's up, brother?
What's going on, boys?
How you feeling?
Good.
All right, so
how good is good?
That was all the goods. All the goods. All of them.
Now, I know it's funny because I know we already talked about this beforehand, and I understand that the draft is tomorrow night, and we're going to get into the draft, but trades have happened, and I want to start there. NBA trade talk, Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Chris Paul, who's probably going to get bought out. And I said this last week when we talked about Bradley Beal. I said, you'll be surprised for how cheap he goes. They just want to dump the contract. And that's exactly what they did. Chris Paul was about to be waived. They're like, hold on. Let's dump that contract, get him for Bradley Beal. Chris Paul had a lot to say about that, by the way. He said that Isaiah Thomas had a lot to do with it, which is a little bit of beef, a little drama. We'll talk about that. But first things first, how do you feel like the fit for Bradley Beal is on the Phoenix Suns? I'll start with you, Cottrell.
So this trade kind of puzzled me a little bit. You know, I think we realized this past season, you know, it would have been nice for Phoenix to have Chris Paul at their disposal in the playoffs. You know, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker couldn't do it all by themselves. But honestly, it seemed like the biggest kryptonite for the Phoenix Suns had been their lack of depth. And making a move to get Bradley Beal, yeah, it's nice that you're getting that kind of talent back. But one, you don't have anybody to run your offense. Devin Booker is not going to run your offense. Bradley Beal is not going to run your offense. And two, you still lack depth. And, you know, the only way I really see this working out is if they can find a way to get rid of DeAndre Ayton and just get good depth pieces back. I saw one of the things mentioned, thrown kind of out there, would be a Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart deal for DeAndre Ayton. And I think that'd make a lot of sense for them. But until Phoenix recoups their assets from the Kevin Durant deal and builds that bench back up, or even just get a point guard in general to run this offense, this deal doesn't make too much sense to me. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
It's funny you say that because I looked at the trade and immediately said to myself, well, who's going to run the offense? You have three of the best ISO players in basketball, guys that can break you down one-on-one. But, like, I have a new nickname for Julius Randle because when I watch Knicks basketball, I think his nickname should be Velcro because every time the ball gets passed to him, it gets stuck there and there's nowhere it goes. This Phoenix Suns offense is going to look like we're playing one-on-one ball, breaking people down off the dribble. That's not efficient offense. Now, granted, you have three of the best one-on-one players in the league. It doesn't matter. Even three of the best one-on-one players in the league are only going to shoot at 50 to 60% from the field, and that's not a winning formula for those three players to just shoot 50, 60% from the field. And they're not always going to be on the court. Depth is a huge issue for that team as a whole. And I don't see anybody on that team that will make other players better, that will make DeAndre Ayton better or Kogi better. I just don't see where it makes them better. Now, granted, I've seen that same thing. Colin Coward brought that up. The DeAndre Ayton for Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart. That would be my first phone call. You need a rim protector, a tough guy that doesn't need the basketball like Mitchell Robinson, and a guy that's going to play defense. I would be more excited with the wing. I know they're not going to be able to pull it off for like RJ Barrett, but the point being is I would be more excited for him to get another forward in there, essentially. A forward that can stretch the court. They need a 4 and a 5. They basically are commanding a 1-2-3, but I watched that offense when Devin Booker ran it throughout the playoffs. And they can score, but it gets really sticky. It gets really drive and make a play, drive and dish, make them double. Shally, do you see anything different than me and Cottrell see? Do you think that Bradley Beal could be a good fit for the Phoenix Suns?
No, I mean, I see exactly what you guys both do. I mean, I think that, again, when the trade was announced, it was kind of a shock value thing because, obviously Bradley Beal's a big name. I just don't understand the fit of it. Like you just pointed out, when Chris Paul was on the court and Devin Booker was running the offense, yeah, they can play ISO ball and they can play, dish and dive and all that stuff. But you now don't have CP3. Devin Booker cannot be your full-time point guard. And you still have 3 guys that want to shoot the ball 25 times a night. That's just not realistic. That is not realistic in today's NBA. I saw a couple people today comparing him to Golden State, and I'm like, that these 3 guys are not going to fit together like the Golden State Warriors do. I mean, that is a culture thing. That is, everybody buys in, and it's been that way for a long time. And it's still really not apples to apples, in my opinion. I agree with both of you. I just don't see how DeAndre Ayton's on this team next year. We said that a couple of weeks ago. I think this kind of cemented it more than anything, to be honest. They have no bench. They have no depth. And they're with, playing, you in reality have 4 max guys on the team right now. They're going to have to free up money. And I can't see, if Ayton was unhappy last year, I don't see how he's happy this year. And what's going to be probably a slower paced, offense with Frank Vogel at the helm. His touches are probably going to go down even more than they were before. I can't see him being happy there and wanting to play in Phoenix. So
you got to remember, though, Frank Vogel made Roy Hibbert a star. And I think that's one of those things that, like, we keep forgetting that Frank Vogel loves bigs. He loves centers. I just don't. Maybe in some warped world, he flips DeAndre Ayton for a 4 and a 5 and turns that 5 into a guy that could be like a Roy Hibbert, a guy that can be a rim protector. If look at his teams, though, his Indiana team, they were huge. Jermaine O'Neal, Roy Hibbert, even the LA team that won the finals. They won that finals in the paint. They were tough to score on.
Yeah, but they didn't. I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it. But he also didn't have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal standing on the outside either. So it's a lot easier to sell that offense when you don't have those guys that want to shoot all the time, and you can go back and look at efficiency and all those things, and make it make sense to the guys. Pass the ball, go inside. That's going to be a different animal in Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm real interested to see how Bradley Beal turns out as the third option because, when the Miami Heat big 3 got together, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, people forget. People were talking who is the better power forward, Chris Bosh or Tim Duncan, back in Chris Bosh's Toronto days. You guys can laugh all you want. I have plenty of lists from 2009 that have Chris Bosh rated ahead of Tim Duncan currently at the power forward position. He was averaging 28 and 13 a night. He was dominating Toronto. He went to Miami to become a bona fide third option and a corner 3-point shooter. That's what he did. And it's got to work, and you have to have 3 guys that will let it work. Now, Kevin Durant will let it work. I think Kevin Durant personally is too passive. I think that he allows Devin Booker to get as many shots as humanly possible. I think the person that wins in this entire trade is Devin Booker. I think he's going to get plenty of open opportunities with less double teams. I just don't think it's sustainable to be successful in the long run. And to touch on your Golden State point, Shally, the big difference between Golden State and Phoenix is Golden State has a Steph Curry and a Draymond Green. Guys that are just unbelievable at passing the basketball. They can see the entire court, and they can allow others to set. How many wide open dunks did you see this offseason for Golden State because they doubled Steph and he made the right play to someone dive into the lane? Dante DiVincenzo is living off of that in the second round of playoffs.
Be interested to see if Phoenix can unload Ayton, depending on what they bring back. I mean, I know the money's got to be close, but I'm sure in a perfect world they'd probably like to go after something like Draymond Green.
Well,
I just don't know what his number is going to be.
That's actually a perfect segue. Shally at it again, because my second question of the night would be, guys, we understand that Draymond Green back to Golden State makes the most sense. But what I want to ask you is, if Draymond Green does, because he did opt out, does not go back to Golden State, what do you think? Where do you think the best home for Draymond Green is? Cottrell, I'll start with you.
I mean, we talk about Phoenix just now. I think that it'd make a lot of sense for him to go there. And I hate to say it, but depending on what the Lakers want to do, I think it makes sense for him to go there as well. Obviously, he has the connection with LeBron and AD. Both those guys being clutch and everything like that. And the Lakers don't have a true point guard. D'Angelo Russell is up for extension, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be back there. Dennis Schroeder doesn't seem like he's going to be back either. So you need a guy who wants to go there and to run an offense. And at this point, it does seem like LeBron, he's ready to take a step back when it comes to just controlling the entire offense. So I think that'd be a place that makes sense as well.
They could play positionless over in LA and have LeBron and Draymond Green basically be the point guards.
Exactly. And I think that'd make a ton of sense, because then that way you could get LeBron off ball a lot more. And what Draymond brings to the table defensively, it just gives you a lot more versatility. So I think Phoenix and LA make the most sense in my opinion, if he leaves Golden State.
I'm gonna give Shally an opportunity. I have a different team that I think he would fit in perfectly, like a glove. Shally, any different teams, or do you agree Phoenix, LA? If Draymond does not sign with Golden State, I get it. We all think he's going back to Golden State. But if he doesn't sign with Golden State, where do you think a good home for Draymond Green would be?
I heard a couple today that were kind of intriguing. Obviously, Phoenix. I don't disagree with Cottrell. I could see him in LA. I could see that making it work. The one I heard today that I didn't think about off the top of my head, but then the more they talked about it, it kind of made sense to me. I heard Milwaukee thrown around today. Okay. Which was interesting, because I don't think they know what's going on with Chris Middleton there.
I think he's gone. I really believe that.
I wouldn't blame him, but I wouldn't blame them for I don't think he's a guy you need to overpay for, if that makes sense. Just to keep him, I think they can. I think there's other avenues for them to go out and make that team better. I don't think they're pigeonholed with Chris Middleton. That was the most intriguing one that I heard. I don't know.
You're leaving the door open for me, and that's fine. I have one that no one's been talking about. And I talked about this the other morning on Coffee and Sports with Sports Empire Network, and I'll talk about it here. I think a perfect fit for him is freaking Dallas, man. Like, I think him and Luka would make so much sense, because Luka's a guy where he can run it. You guys forget that Draymond Green is probably the best screener in basketball. He is the best screen guy in all basketball. He understands how to run an offense. Luka has the ball in his hands way too much. I think Draymond could set Luka up with way better shots, and I think that it would allow Dallas to have a true point guard. And I know he's not a point guard as a whole, but he can a facilitator to run the offense that's not looking to score first. I think that makes too much sense. I think that if Dallas brought him in, it extends and makes Luka's career a lot better. So, like, we look at Luka Doncic right now, right? What's the difference between Luka now and what James Harden was in Houston?
I still think I think Luka's a more complete player now than Harden was back then.
Okay, so give me what he does more complete. James Harden is a grade A passer, a grade A scorer, a grade A minus shooter. What does Luka do that James Harden didn't do in Houston? Because they both don't defend.
I mean, Luka defends more than James Harden did.
I disagree.
I mean, again, it's nothing. It's nothing to write home about.
Correct.
Either way.
I mean, I do think Luka is the better player. Talent wise, just because what you see with Luka, them going to the Western Conference Finals and them beating that Phoenix team. I mean, that was very impressive. And up until Chris Paul got to Houston, you saw James Harden, for lack of better terms, just come up short in the playoffs. So I think, with Luka, that would make sense. The only thing that I kind of would question a little bit would be if he can get along with Kyrie and Luka.
I don't know if Kyrie's coming back there.
I mean, that too.
I really don't. Yeah, I think they go out there and they get Draymond, and they can still bring another player in. You could go Draymond, Chris Middleton, Luka.
You could. I mean, yeah, you definitely could do that, and I think that'd make some sense. But I'm just saying, I don't know if they don't go all out to try and bring Kyrie back. And to be honest, I don't know what the market is for Kyrie. Like, I don't know if we're going to get into that tonight or we're going to wait till next week, but I don't see, a lot of the original thought was he goes to LA. I don't see LA being in the market for him because I think they want to bring back Rui and they want to bring back Austin Reeves. And then they just got to find a way they can get somebody for cheaper if they want to go the Van Fleet route. They want to go after Draymond, or maybe they want to go after Chris Paul and see if he'll take a pay cut to play with his boy. So I think LA has a ton other options as opposed to going after Kyrie, and I just don't know what the market is like for him. So
I think if I'm the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm making priority one Austin Reeves. He showed you last year he can be a potential superstar in this league. Then my priority two is to replace D'Angelo Russell with a point guard that doesn't turn the ball over as often. So Chris Paul would make sense there, or a different point guard, maybe a Mike Conley Jr. would make sense there. And then I'm trying to get Rui Hachimura re-signed, or a Draymond Green to fit into that role. And I feel like they can afford Draymond at that price. Like if you bring CP3 in on a buyout, he's not costing you much. His contract already got bought out. So I feel like that could be a huge win for them. The Los Angeles Lakers have a lot more options than I would have gave them credit for. Got to give Mitch Kupchak his credit. He did a great job around the trade deadline last year. And they have a little bit of flexibility at this point.
Absolutely.
So next topic is the trade that just went down just 3 hours ago. It's not fully official yet, but I want to get your initial reactions. Kristaps Porzingis to Boston, Malcolm Brogdon to the LA Clippers, and all for Marcus Morris and a 30 pick. Is this really what happened? Is that I feel like that I understand what Boston did. I feel like the Los Angeles Clippers absolutely fleeced this deal. Like they've made out like bandits. They got rid of Marcus Morris and brought in Malcolm Brogdon. Like that's a win right there, right? Boston's like replacing one piece for another piece. They're replacing, sixth man of the year in Malcolm Brogdon with a guy that can probably shoot the three ball a little better than average Al, and that can stretch the fives out, like to stretch the Embiids out, stretch players out to be able to open the lane up for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I can get that. But how the Clippers ended up with Malcolm Brogdon from Marcus Morris is hilarious to me. Your initial thoughts on the trade? I think that Boston lost the trade. I think the Clippers won the trade. I understand what Boston's doing. I understand what the Wizards are doing. Your thoughts, Cottrell? Start us off.
I will say I think the Clippers, obviously, I think the Clippers won the trade. You're just getting rid of Marcus Morris. You had an abundance of forwards anyway. You had Rocco there. Yep. You got Kawhi. You got Paul George. Like you got an abundance of wings there. So you can afford to get rid of Marcus Morris. But for what the Clippers did, I think it's very interesting because now they have a crowded backcourt in reality. you have the potential of bringing back Russell Westbrook. You just traded for Bones Highland during the middle of the season. You have Terrence Mann there, and now you bring in Malcolm Brogdon. And I'm not saying all those guys can't coexist, but it almost seems like they're kind of unsure about how they felt about that backcourt, and they wanted to bring in a veteran who they know, for lack of better terms, they know they can trust. Malcolm Brogdon is not going to be a guy that loses you ball games. He's always been a guy that has a great assist turnover ratio, doesn't turn the ball over much, and he can shoot the ball well. So it makes a ton of sense for the Clippers to make that deal. As for Boston, I think it's really a situation where, as good as Malcolm Brogdon is, when it got late in games, he wasn't on the court for them. They trusted Derek White more because, Derek White had been there longer, or, Derek White had got hot in the playoffs for games at a time. So Derek White would be playing and Marcus Smart would be there, but they'd have to roll with either Al Horford running their 5, or they bring in Robert Williams, who, if he's not dunking off of an alley-oop, really limited offense. So I 100% understand what the Celtics are trying to do here. They got a lot of guards. It seems like Marcus Smart is their guy for whatever reason. So you get a guy who you trust a little bit more down the stretch, and you don't have deficiencies in Al Horford and Robert Williams, and you get a guy that can kind of play both sides of the ball. So I get it from Boston's standpoint as well.
Shao, what are your thoughts on it? I don't really get it from Boston's standpoint. I think that if you're choosing Derek White over Malcolm Brogdon, that's a mistake. And I think that Kristaps Porzingis does not play the defense Average Al does. You're not going to play Average Al and Kristaps together. You're essentially making this move to play a lineup of Robert Williams, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, with Derek White being your 6th man. Or they're bringing Robert Williams off the bench and going to try to play Kristaps at the 5. You tell me what that looks like to you, Shally.
I think that's the interesting question I have, if he's going to play the 4 or the 5. I actually lean a little bit towards what you said at the end. I think they're going to play the 5. They're going to put Williams the 4, run with Tatum and Brown on the wings, and Marcus Smart as your point guard. I think they look at it, dude. They need another gun. And that's, for lack of a better terms, I think that's what this is about. And, they turn around and, they looked at Derek White. I think they like Derek White's defense and his intangibles a little bit better than Malcolm Brogdon. I think Brogdon's a better player, but I do think they're close. I think they're very similar. I like Brogdon. I like Brogdon off the dribble a little bit more. I think White is a little bit of a better shooter sometimes. So, I think that was just a personal preference for them. I think that, and obviously if the Clippers were involved and they're like, hey, you can have one of these guys for, like you said, one of the Morris brothers and, a salary dump, for lack of a better terms. So like, which one do you want? I think they were like, we'll take Malcolm Brogdon. And that was, that's what came from there. And I think Boston's looking to add another name. I think maybe they think, in a weird way, maybe that helps them retain Jaylen Brown as well, helps him towards re-signing and wanting to stay, that they're trying to get better. They're not being, for lack of a better term, lackadaisical or, sitting on their hands. But, and like you said, Washington, we understand Washington. They're dumping salary. They're just going to completely blow it up and try to rebuild it. So, I get it. I'm not saying I agree with it. If I was a Celtics fan, I don't know how happy I would be right now. Everybody keeps talking about he had a career year last year. That was coming off of, he really didn't play basketball for 2 years. So he's not the most durable guy in the world at all. And there's some bigs in the East that he's going to bang with a lot. So I'll be curious to see how his durability is and how long he holds up. But it's gonna be interesting to see how they work him in and make him fit. Especially in the offense at the beginning of the year with a head coach that there's also question marks surrounding as well. So like I said, if I'm a Celtics fan, I'm not overly happy or crazy about this deal at all.
Well, Jordan just checked in. He said it's going to be a crazy offseason. Can't wait for the draft. I mean, what better time to get into the draft? Tomorrow night, NBA draft. We all know who the Spurs are going with at number 1. My first question for you guys before we get into anything else is, how good are you projecting Victor Wembanyama to be in the NBA? Like, Like, what do you? So I would love to hear your thoughts on how great he could be.
How great he could be. I mean, I think he has the potential to be a 30,000 point scorer and be top 10 in points, or really whatever he wants to do, he has the ability to do it. Now, with that said, I gotta, and I don't even know if it's a bold statement, but I got a statement that I'm pretty ready to stand on. I think when it's all said and done, as great as I think Victor is, ultimately, I don't think we will be viewing him as a better player than Kevin Durant when his career is over.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Kevin Durant's a borderline top 10 player of all time.
Yeah, I mean,
Talking about 10 through 15.
That's a
Yeah,
steep
but
hill.
I know, but everyone's talking about Victor Wembanyama as being the greatest prospect ever, like the NBA has ever seen. So
Yeah.
they're pretty much putting him up there. Obviously, remember how highly touted LeBron was when he came out, when Kobe had came out, and Kobe wasn't even like a number one pick, but after that first year and things like that. So him already being in the conversation with names like that tells you how high people think he can get. And I'm saying Kevin Durant, as great as he is, we don't talk about Kevin Durant being a top 10 player all time. And I don't think Victor eclipses wherever Kevin Durant ends up on that all-time list.
Okay. So that's fun. That's funny that you say that, because I have a similar view. I'll let Shally go first because I want to go a little bit of a tangent with this.
Well, I hate this. This is one of the things I hate the most about anything that like sports media does. We went through this last year with Chad and everybody else, and then dude didn't even play a minute. But I mean, he has all the tools, he has all the skills. He's going to do things that we've really never seen in the NBA before with somebody at his height. We got a preview of it a little bit last year with Chet, before he got hurt in the preseason. But I mean, they're very similar type players because of their size. I think Victor's obviously a little bit more polished and a little bit more further along than Chet is. Do I want to say he's gonna be top 10? Like, I mean, that's crazy. I'm not saying he couldn't end up there, but like, we're gonna sit here and say before he's played a second in the NBA, he's gonna be top 10. I kind of agree with Cottrell. I mean, I think if you want to compare him to somebody like Durant or somebody like that, like to Gene's point, I think when it's all said and done, Durant's probably on that borderline of top 10. He's probably between 10 and 15 somewhere. Or am I saying that the kid's gonna be better than him? Like that's a really steep hill to climb when you really look at what Kevin Durant's done in his career. I'll say he's great. I'd say he's probably better than 50-50 to definitely make the Hall of Fame and be that type of player if he can stay healthy. I'm not saying he's top 10. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I just, not that I don't think he can do it or I doubt him or I think he's a bust or anything like that, because I don't. But it's no different than anything else. I got to see him play against NBA competition and see where we're at.
It's funny you say that, right? I think Victor is going to be one of the greatest talents we ever watched play the game of basketball. I think his talent is going to surpass anything that we can even dream of when it comes to going on a basketball court. Just his talent. Just hear me out. Let me get through a full point on this, because I know that comes off as insanity, right? I think Victor Wembanyama will have multiple quadruple doubles in his career, which has only been done 5 times in NBA history. Okay, I think he'll have multiple of those. I think he's going to put up stat sheets that we haven't seen or have never expected for a good portion of his career. That being said, I don't think a 7'3" guy, 7'4" guy with that frame has longevity or has the ability to take a beating through an 82-game season year in and year out. I think you're often going to see Victor Wembanyama on the injury list. Load management's going to be a huge thing. I will not be shocked if he has foot injuries, just like Chet Holmgren just did. Liz Frank injuries, things of that nature. It happened to Yao Ming throughout his whole career. Yao Ming was bigger sized. Victor is just too. You look at Kevin Durant, what happened to his knees and his Achilles during the middle of his career, you basically got cut short of what could have been a top 5 career of all time with Kevin Durant because of injuries. Like, let's not lie to ourselves. I think Victor's talent will be right up there with LeBron James. But I think that overall, when his career's over, you'll be looking at him a lot more like a Moses Malone in that 10 to 20 range of all time, even lower maybe, because I don't think he projects to be, I'm just giving you my personal opinion. I don't think he projects to have the longevity that a Kareem had or even a Shaq had. You know, Shaq came in the league and just took the league by storm, and he was a big body guy. I think he's too thin, too frail, and all this talk about him bringing the ball up and his abilities of a point guard. The French league and the NBA are a huge difference. I promise you right now, he will not be tiptoeing around guards in the NBA. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and a lot of these athletic wings are just going to pluck that ball right from him. It's not going to take much. And I don't think his body is big enough to be able to back players like that down. I think that Victor will be great. I do. I think he'll be a Hall of Famer. I think he'll be a perennial All-Star. And I think he's deservedly so going to be the, no doubt about it, number 1 pick tonight. But I don't see him having a top 10 NBA career. They say he's the most touted prospect ever or since LeBron James. And I think that Victor will end up being in that 12 to 25 range, which is not Magic, which is not LeBron, which is not Kobe. It's a shade below Kevin Durant. Thoughts on that? Any comments?
I mean, I 100% agree. I think the big thing, and I said it a couple weeks ago when we had brought up Wemby for a little bit. I think his body makeup, it's not built to last. And if you don't have a body that's made to last, you're not going to be on the top 10 all time list. Like it's just not going to be the case. You have so many guys who've played for a long time and have been able to sustain that success for a long time. So I'm 100% with you there. I think the big thing with Wemby too is that once he does like pick up some miles on his body, once he's 28, 29, he's going to have to adapt his game because he's not going to be able to play the same as he did when he was, 18, 19, 20 years old. So him having that size, it'll be interesting to see how he adapts. Most of the greats, they find a way to still be productive, when they're older. Wemby is going to be in a unique spot because his game is going to have to change drastically. Obviously he won't want to turn into just a spot up shooter, but if his body kind of dictate that, we'll have to see if that's just something that he'll be able to do. So I 100% agree with everything you said.
Okay. Well, it's good that, good that Control's agreeing with me. I normally know I'm on the right path. So before we get into everything else in the draft, let's talk about the next 2 picks, Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller. What I'd love you guys to do is to give me some type of NBA comps to what you see when you look at Scoot and when you look at Brandon Miller. I have 2, right? I've already talked about this on a previous show. I'll start because I didn't fully prep you guys on this one. I know you guys already know about the draft as a whole, but when I see Scoot Henderson, what I see is a little bit more polished and a better shooting version of what Russell Westbrook is today. I see a high energy guy that is ultra athletic, ultra competitive, that can get to the lane, explodes at the basket. I think he's a decent shooter. He's not a great shooter, but his shot will be better than what Russell Westbrook's was. Maybe beginning of career, Russ, before whatever he did to screw up his shot. I don't know what happened, but I see a Russell Westbrook type player. When I look at Brandon Miller, I've seen all comps up and down the board, but the only one that could really resonate to me is Paul George. I think Brandon Miller reminds me so much of Paul George. The size, the athleticism, be able to play the 2 and the 3. He can shoot the basketball. He can get to the lane. I think he plays decent defense. You see that in college at Alabama. I think those 2 players are good comps. I'm sure Cottrell will have a better one, but let's hear it. Cottrell, what comps do you give the next 2 picks off the board?
For Scoot, I Again, I hate that I keep agreeing with you, but Russell Westbrook I think is a perfect comparison for him. Scoot's a guy who it's been coming out more recently too that apparently he has this kind of ego to him, and that's going to be one of those things that depending on what situation he goes to, might have to just get checked at the door depending on if there's a lot of vets around him and things like that.
I mean, you
And
didn't see that at the All-Star game?
yeah, of course, but
I
that's the All
seen
Star
it.
game. You're around your peers. Like he was with other G League Ignite guys. Like Scoot had been the talk of the town. Like Scoot's basically been the number 2 pick in this draft class for the last 2 years. Like we've known about Scoot since his senior year of high
It's
school
fair.
and before that. So Scoot's always been the man. But I think he's going to come into the league with that chip on his shoulder, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how he goes with that. Because whatever team he goes to, whether it be Charlotte or Portland, or if someone trades for him, he's going to have the keys to the franchise, and he's going to have the ability to do what he wants. I think high motor, high energy guy, not a great shooter at this point in his career, but I think he can turn out to be okay. So I think Russell Westbrook is a great comparison for him. For Brandon Miller, I somewhat agree with that Paul George comparison. But when I look at Brandon Miller, I see a guy like Brandon Roy. I know Brandon Roy's career got cut short because of injury and things like that, but just that tweener guy that can be the 2 or 3. Brandon Miller's a guy that can give you, 30, 40 points a night. We saw what he was doing at Alabama, even with the slow starts. He'd find a way to turn it on and find ways, will them to victory. So I think he could be a franchise guy for a team, similar to what Brandon Roy was on the trajectory to do before the knee injuries, obviously derailed him.
Before I go to Shally, I just want to address some of the comments. Notoriety Sports, my man Dylan, strictly talent with politics aside, KD is super close to top 10 of all time. I agree 100%. He also said Wemby shoots like KD, plays defense like Gobert. Dude has just have them knees hold up. I can't say he plays defense like Gobert yet. He plays defense like Gobert in the French league. It's not the NBA. Gobert's won to play defensive player of the year, I think twice. Jory said, and I love this, I definitely agree, but hopefully he can bulk up, not too much, but just so much so he's not too frail. And she also said she was going to say Paul George also for Brandon Miller. Shally, Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, your thoughts?
I like Brandon Miller a little bit better. I would take Brandon Miller number 2. I think he's the more complete player. The only thing I disagree with what you said is that he's pretty good defensively. He's actually a very good defender. He can probably guard anything 2 through 4 with his length and his athleticism, even his height. So I like Brandon Miller a lot. I don't think Scoot's gonna be a bad player by any means. I just think Scoot is you're getting Scoot for his offense, and you're plugging him into your team and hoping he's going to help you in that way. I think Brandon Miller's the better overall player. Player comp wise, I did see Paul George a lot. I think another one that intrigued me a lot for Brandon Miller, I saw Brandon Ingram, which I don't think is that far off the mark either. I think Miller's probably already a better defender than Brandon Ingram, but I also think Brandon Ingram has taken steps the last 2 years, and you're seeing what kind of complete offensive player he is as well. So Scoot Henderson, I think Russell Westbrook's a really good one. I've seen De'Aaron Fox and a couple other people. I don't think that's a bad one either. I think he's probably a little bit of a better shooter at this point in his career than De'Aaron Fox was. But De'Aaron Fox has also worked on his shot a lot the last couple of years, and he had the huge breakout year that he had this year. So
You're talking about when De'Aaron Fox was a rookie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's is really close. So I think it's gonna be a good draft. I mean, I think if you're picking in the top 3, I think if you're getting any one of the 3 of them, I think you're in good shape. I mean, obviously Vickers going to go number 1, but I don't think Charlotte could go wrong with either one of them. I think Brandon Miller's a better fit for that team with what they already have in place and what they want to do, where they need to get better.
I think it's really dependent, if I'm being honest with you. If you keep LaMelo Ball and you want to continue to build around him, I think Brandon Miller's the perfect fit for them. If you're planning on moving on from LaMelo Ball, I think that Scoot Henderson would be the move for them.
I just don't know why you would move on from LaMelo. I mean, I
don't know if they have a choice.
What do you
When
mean?
you ruin a kid's career for the first 3 years of his career by playing in Charlotte with no talent, you completely tear that thing apart. I don't think you have LaMelo Ball might tell you at the end of next year, I'm gone.
Yeah, but I also think, the way the NBA is set up, I mean, you're going to find players, especially right after their rookie deal, you'll be hard pressed to find them turn down that extension just because LaMelo, he's been an all-star at this point. Like, I'm sure he's going to be eligible, depending on how the season goes, he's going to be eligible for that super max deal. And you won't have guys turn that down. So I think Charlotte at least has 2, maybe 3 years of LaMelo before they really get put in a sticky situation where they have to trade them.
Well, I got 2 more draft questions about the top 3, and then I'm going to get you guys a question outside of it. So the first one is Victor Wembanyama going to San Antonio with Greg Popovich. A lot of people are talking about how great of a fit that is, how well he'll develop under Pop. This is just a question for you guys, and I'm not saying I disagree with that statement. I think that it could be a match made in heaven, but Pop has had a real issue with superstars over the last 15 years. Tim Duncan really was the only superstar that he ended up managing well. He had issues with Kawhi. The issues that he had with DeMar DeRozan when DeMar was there. There's been a lot of issues that turn up with the best player on the team, right? He ended up shipping out, in my opinion, DeJounte Murray, which was a future because attitude concerns or whatever that may be. Pop has had an issue with star players. Do you think that it's because Pop's such a great coach, it's that Belichick in him and he needs that Brady, which would have been Tim Duncan? Or do you think Victor is a perfect fit for a Popovich-led system?
I think in this situation, it's a little bit different. The guys that you've mentioned beforehand, like DeMar DeRozan, DeMar was already an established star in this league by the time that he went to San Antonio. Another guy that comes to mind for me is Pop got LaMarcus Aldridge basically in his prime, and that didn't work out too well for them. I think the big difference is Wemby doesn't know what it's like to be in the NBA yet. Yeah, he has all the fame and stuff surrounding him, but he doesn't know what it's like he doesn't know how NBA stars move or how they feel yet. He's not that guy. And even though he's going to be going into this San Antonio team as the number 1 option, and it's clear cut, and there's going to be no doubt about it, he doesn't have that superstar mindset yet. Like
I don't know if I agree with that. He's been a superstar in the French league. He's been the talk of the NBA for basically a full year. Every one of his games is drawing ridiculous crowds.
I get that. I get that 100%. Like, people know who he is, and I'm sure crowd wise, he feels that, but it's going to be different when he goes into that first NBA practice and, or even in the summer league, if he's not the best performer out there. Like, if he goes into the summer league in San Antonio, let's say they play Charlotte and, Brandon Miller is there and Brandon Miller goes off for 35. That'd be the first time that Victor hasn't been the best player on the floor is what I'm saying. And that's just the summer league. So we get to the NBA, things might get completely different. The first time, let's say they play the Heat or they play the Bucks and Victor is just getting strapped by Giannis. Pop's going to go up to him like, yeah, you thought you were hot shit before, but this is what real NBA superstars look like, and you're not there yet. And then I think that could be like a learning lesson for him. When you got guys like DeMar and LaMarcus Aldridge, like Lamar could say, hey, I was giving Tim Duncan buckets in his prime when he was in San Antonio. DeMar can say I was giving buckets to LeBron and Kobe and all these other guys. Victor hasn't done that yet. So I think it is slightly different with them.
Sure.
I think the one thing that I worry about with Victor is him getting, I don't want to say too close to Pop. I just don't know how long Pop's going to be there. It's great coaching that talent, but I mean, Pop's done it all already. So how long is Pop really going to be around?
Well, he was going to leave until they got the first overall pick.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. Shally, what are your thoughts?
I tend to agree. I mean, we listed all the guys that have been there and some worked out, some didn't. I mean, I don't think some of those were all on Pop. I mean, you look at Kawhi and, he's obviously not, when the whole injury thing went down, then he went through it in Toronto. He went through it again this year in LA. I don't think it's all on Pop. DeMar DeRozan is probably the one that sticks out the most for me. But again, I think it's, to your point with Bill Belichick, I don't think it's that severe. But at the same time, I think it's, we're going to play basketball this way, and this is the way we're going to play. And if you don't like it, then you're not going to be here. I think the one thing with Victor is with all his fanfare and all his fame and that he has, already, I haven't seen any example of, an ego or anything like that. And I think as long as he goes into, the NBA with open eyes like that, and an open mind, and learns the game, then I think he's going to one of, if not, the best coaches of this generation. So it's. I'm not saying it's gonna be a perfect fit, but if I had to bet money, I would say it's going to be a good fit versus not going to be.
That's a real interesting comment. This is why I want to see CP3 go to San Antonio. CP3 and Pop could be amazing for Wemby's development. I don't think CP3 really wants to be a part of someone's development at this point. I think he's ring tracing, but that would be fun to watch. CP3 with Pop and then Wemby.
It would be, but I mean, you look at all the the years they won championships. They had Tim Duncan and they had Tony Parker, who was a very not me first type of guy. Ginobili coming off the bench, and they had other role players there, and younger superstars, and they played the right way and they won. I mean, it's he's you already said it, like this is going to be like his next version. He's going to try to make this guy his next Tim Duncan. I agree CP3 is not going to go there, because I think if we're being 100% honest with ourselves, he has this year, maybe next year if he gets through this year, healthy, and that's a huge if at this point. I think he's going to go somewhere where he thinks he can, possibly win that ring and cap off his career.
I wish he would have retired. He's done, in my opinion. I love him. You guys know how big of a CP3 fan I am, but he's done. I've said this in the middle of this year. I said it after the year they lost the championship. The next year, I was like, this is his last year. And it's been now 2 years since then. I just feel like that his body is just completely shutting down on him. He didn't take care of himself the way LeBron did. I'm sure he did, but like LeBron put $1 million a year into his body. But let me
LeBron's genetic freak too. I mean, that's a hard comparison for anybody, if I'm being honest.
I will say too, the one thing with CP3 that I think kind of gives him a little bit of hope. We've said Kyle Lowry's been done for the past 2-3 years, and just randomly, Kyle Lowry with the Miami Heat, he'll have, 1 or 2 games or 3 games where he's just a big impact for them. So I think as long as CP3 can stay healthy, and again, that's just a big if, he could still be a contributor to a team has championship aspirations. And I think Kyle Lowry kind of laid the blueprint of, hey, my body's breaking down and I'm not as skilled as I used to be, but I can find a way to still be somewhat productive.
He's got to make sure he's okay with coming off the bench like Kyle Lowry did. And I don't know if Chris Paul's that type of guy. Second question on the top 3, and then we'll get into something else in the draft, is do you think there's any chance that Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson don't go 2-3? And if there is anybody that could challenge for the 3rd pick or the 2nd pick, who would it be?
I don't, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation yesterday in the office that the NBA draft is one of the nights where I don't like the access to information that all these people have now. I liked when I was younger being able to turn it on and not having a freaking clue who was going to get picked. Like that was.
Well, I got news for you, Shally. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you, the answer is I don't think it's. I think if the trade doesn't happen and Brandon Miller goes 2, I don't think Scoot Henderson goes 3.
I agree 100%.
Because Dame Lillard has already said he doesn't want Scoot there.
Dame also apparently officially requested, a trade today too. So, I mean, at that point, then if you're getting, if in the back of your mind that you're trading Dame, he's kind of a logical person to pick to replace Dame Lillard and build around.
Agreed.
So,
but I'm saying if Dame's still on that team, and if they don't make a trade for Dame and they don't trade that 3rd overall pick, I'm telling you right now, number 3 is going to be really interesting if Brandon Miller goes 2.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it's also, if he really just requested the trade today, the odds of him getting traded by the draft tomorrow night are slim and none. So
I think it's the opposite, Shally. I don't think he requested the trade today. Woj reported that he's basically rescinded anything. Like he basically told Portland, don't trade me. I want to stay here. So I don't think Portland will be shopping Dame anymore, because it said that they're no longer receiving phone calls or taking phone calls about Dame. So I think there's a high probability that if Charlotte doesn't take if they don't take Scoot, I really think Scoot could possibly fall to 4. And I think the people that would be on the table for the Blazers would be either a Min or a Sir Thompson. I mean, you would want a athletic wing in both those guys, same height, depending on who you like more. Um, they're going to be a wing complement to the Blazers team. And I think that's really what, I mean, they're missing a lot, but I think it would make more sense to go that route as opposed to drafting another guard who probably would struggle playing next to Dame, because Dame's going to be the primary ball handler on that team.
I personally believe if Dame Lillard isn't moved and Brandon Miller goes 2, Scoot doesn't go 3. And I got news for you. I don't think they go to Min or Sir Thompson at 3. I think Cam Whitmore might surprise a lot of people and be the 3 that goes to Portland if Dame Lillard. I really believe it. Maybe I'm wrong. If it happens tomorrow night, you can clip this and tell me I was right. But I'm going a little off. I think Cam Whitmore might be the guy for Portland at 3. I really I have a weird, sneaky feeling about it. And I've been wrong before. We'll see.
I don't mind the pick percent. I just don't know how you pick him 3 at that point. I feel like if somebody's trying to move up, you could trade back and get him.
100%. Well, Cam Whitmore is looked at as the 6th best prospect on the board. He was looked at as 3rd all year. Well, I mean, at 4th all year. I mean, he was looked at as 4th all year. So let's not pretend that 4 is a crazy number for him to go. He's listed as 6. All right. So, Charles, you have a graphic for the whole draft board?
Yeah, for the lottery at least. I mean, lotteries. It's the NBA. We only care about the lottery.
So, looking at this board, we know 1, 2, and 3, like the top 3 players could be Victor, Brandon, and then Scoot. What team on this board makes sense for a player in this draft? Like 4 through 14, what is the best fit for a team 4 through 14 that you can see in this draft? Like if number 9, if somehow someone can fit here, I would love to hear your opinions on that. Like, so I'll give you guys an example, right? And I know that a lot of this is spur of the moment type stuff, but I think a really good fit for a team like Washington, who would replace Bradley Beal, would be Anthony Black. I think he would be a perfect fit to go in there, play the 2 guard for them. 8, Anthony Black, Washington Wizards. It just makes sense to me. Is there anyone else that just seems like a glove type fit in this top 14?
I actually like the Anthony Black name, but I think if there's a way, if Dallas knows that they're losing out on Kyrie, and I think that'd be a way for them to grab a point guard that can be a complimentary scorer to Luka. I think Anthony Black would be, obviously, Washington can build around Anthony Black, but I think Anthony Black could be a bona fide right away impact for a Dallas Mavericks team that might be losing out on their superstar point guard.
Dylan says, I want Whitmore at 7, and that's very possible. Whitmore Hendricks at 7 for my Pacers. He's a Pacers fan. We'll talk about the Brandon Miller comments in a minute. I think someone should use that as you got to be kidding me. So I won't mention that if somebody else is using it, but any specific fit that you see, Shally, anything that you think would be a really good fit for a player in the 4 through 14 range?
I mean, I think a lot of it depends on like what some of these teams do. Like Dallas, I think Dallas, could go, a big guy. I think they need a big guy. You got Lively from Duke that I think would be a good fit, to be around, Luka in that spot.
It's a really good name.
Not have a lot of pressure right off the bat. And I think my little guy from Michigan, I think Kobe Buffkin is a great fit for Toronto. Point guard that can shoot. They're obviously going to be
Van Fleet.
Yep, they're going to, obviously Van Fleet's not coming back. I think that's a perfect landing spot for him there. Good outside shot, even getting better. Very good court vision. And he's not a me first type player. So I think that'd be a really good point guard for them to start over with there, after losing the guy that's been there for, almost a decade.
See, I think the problem for me with this draft is outside of, I say, the top 5, maybe 6, there's that like 6 to 18 to 20 range. There's not a lot of players that I love, but in this class, I think if I'm in that range, like if I'm in the back half of the lottery here, or even in that 15 to 20 range, I'm reaching for guys who are rated outside the top 20 because I think there's a lot of talent there. And I think, it's obviously you're going to have to, it's going to be real high risk, high reward kind of thing. But there's guys that I like more outside of the top 20 than, from that 6 to 20 range.
I think there's two guys that are listed 14, 15 that would be, I think, could be NBA stars. I really believe that. Nick Smith Jr., you guys know I've been on him from Arkansas, and I think Cason Wallace from Kentucky can be NBA starters. I really believe that. And good starters, but the one person, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I haven't seen that much film on him. I'm not going to pretend, but he's been wowing people at the combine and all these workouts. What are your thoughts on Bilal? Bilal, which is Victor's teammate from France, another 6'7" small forward. What are your guys' thoughts on him? He's been skyrocketing up draft boards. Just as recently as March, he was projected a second-round draft pick. Now he's projected to go top 10, maybe 10, 11. And it's all because of his pre-draft workouts. They're saying that he's jumping out the gym. His athleticism is crazy. I think he's got like a 7-foot wingspan at 6'7". Your thoughts on Bilal?
The weird thing about Bilal specifically is that even before this season, I had seen so many of his like crazy like workouts and stuff on Twitter because he's Wemby's teammate. So the fact that now he's just now really getting all of this attention is kind of crazy to me. And I think the other part of it too is I want to see guys who play basketball well. Like I don't want to just see those guys who are going to post the great highlights, great athleticism, things like that. I want to see what you can do in a game. So I think for what he is, the game is moving towards, wings are kings. So I think if you can get a guy like that, I'm not reaching for him. I'll say that if I'm in the top 10, I'm not drafting him. But I think if he goes to the right team, I think he could be a good fit for a team. But I don't love him just because of combines. Like I've seen, Metropolitan 92 play, and he doesn't do anything that I'm like, hey, that guy can be a cornerstone for my franchise.
Any player that you want to highlight that might not be on anyone's radar that you want to talk about, and you're not, so I'll just let you know, Cottrell, you're not allowed to use Bryce Sensabaugh. You can't use them. You can pick anyone else you want. Any player you'd like to highlight that is not on, that we haven't talked about, that you think could be a very good pro?
Yeah, I got a few. I think Amari Bailey, I would have liked him. He's a point guard coming out of UCLA. Would have liked him to see him go back to school for another year. But I think he's super talented. He went to Sierra Canyon, and he was a highly touted prospect coming out of high school. And I think if he goes to a team, he's going to go to a team outside of the lottery. So he's going to a playoff team. I think he could be a really good piece for that team. The other name that I definitely want to mention is Trace Jackson Davis out of Indiana. This is a guy who was first team All-American, and I get it. The big question is if his game's going to translate. He was essentially a 6'8" big at Indiana, but I think he has a great feel for the game, and I think he can go to a team and be really special. So those are the two that I really am high on this draft outside of like the lottery.
Outside the lottery, Shally, anybody you're really high on that you like?
I mean, I didn't do outside the lottery per se. I mean, I just looked at names that, projected to go way further down. I mean, there's a couple interesting ones. Jalen Wilson, who was all everything his last year in college for Kansas. He's not projected to go in like the middle of the second round. I think he has the ability to at least be a very solid starter in the NBA. Can be a good wing for somebody. And then the very interesting name, a guy that we've talked about here on numerous times, with the troubles he's gotten in, or what we thought he was going to be when he was originally going to Memphis. Imani Bates scheduled to go in the second round. He was universally looked at as probably an overall number one pick, just 2.5 short years ago. his troubles with Memphis, then getting in trouble on his own are well documented. Curious to see if anybody takes a flyer on him, see if they can, get that magic back and maybe, have him grow up a little bit and put him in the right system and, see if you get an absolute second round steal out of him. But there's two very interesting names that I'll be looking to see where they end up going.
I wanted to respond to Dylan's comment here. He said, thoughts on Grady Dick. Pacers held a private workout with him, and he's a green room attendee, so I'm curious. So all I want you to do, and this is something that I want everyone to do that looks at some of these prospects that are higher up on this list that they have no idea about. I want you to watch his last game versus Arkansas, and I want you to watch how he got abused by the physicality that Arkansas brought on him. He looked absolutely like a fish out of water when someone put a body on him. And it's nothing against the kid. Like, I don't want to sit here and trash him, but like, you can see a lot from a player. You go to LA Fitness, right? Like, you ever go to the gym and play some basketball? You can tell a lot by how someone reacts to physicality and how someone reacts to someone that's in their grill or a more athletic guy that's in their grill. I think Grady Dick is one of the bigger busts in this draft. I think that the most you'll hear his name is on draft night. I'm shocked that he's a green room attendee. I get it. He's projected to be a top 15 pick, and he has that option. But if I'm giving you my overall opinion on him, I think he's soft. I think that, I said this last year about Jabari Smith. I thought Jabari Smith showed me what he was in that NCAA tournament. When the going got tough, Jabari Smith got going. And I'm going to say it about Grady Dick now. And I think that he's just not the guy. I really believe he's not.
I don't know who he is, Gene.
What'd you say?
I said, you know who he is?
Who?
He's this year's Corey Kispert, guy from Gonzaga.
100%.
Who, when things were going well, he's on fire. He's talking, but then when things get tough, he's nowhere to be found. We said the same thing about Corey Kispert on draft night. He was a lottery guy, and you really haven't heard much about him in the NBA. The one thing that I think Grady kind of has going for him is, he's a slightly better shooter than probably what Corey Kispert is. But I wouldn't use a lottery pick on him either.
Tomorrow night, Kervin.
I think that's where it falls for me. I go back to last year, we were making our predictions and everything. I had Kansas pretty high all year. So I watched a lot of Kansas last year. I was shocked when he declared. I'll be 100% honest with you. I've easily watched him play 8 to 10 games last year. I was shocked when he declared for the draft. I was shocked when he stayed in the draft. If you're drafting him, I think he has a decent ceiling to be a solid NBA player. I think he's a project. I don't. And to Cottrell nailed it perfectly. I am not taking this kid with a lottery pick. I'm not doing it. You're getting him. He's going to have to bulk up. Gene's not wrong. He doesn't have a really big physical aspect to his game right now, which he's going to have to develop to play in the NBA. He's just not there. He has, all the skills individually. He could shoot. He can play outside for a big. Like he has all that in him. He is not going to be an NBA All-Star type player for at least a few years. So I don't know if I'm wasting a lottery pick on somebody that I know going in is 100% for a project, for lack of a better term.
I will say too, I did want to double down on what Shally said. Amani Bates is a great name to bring up because I think Amani Bates his ceiling is so high. Like I think his ceiling has superstar ability, but it's just the reality of, is he going to be bought in? Is he going to go to the right system? Is he going to be that guy to do the little things first? Because wherever he goes, he's going to be coming off the bench. So is he going to embrace that, or is he going to just pout and kind of get flushed out of the rotation and go from there? But Amani Bates has the talent to be a superstar in the NBA. So it will be interesting. And I think that's a great name. And if I'm in that back half of the first round, and I'm a team that was in the playoffs last year, I'm going to see, I draft Amani Bates earlier than his second round projection.
I think a guy that's going outside the lottery that could be really good is Iowa's Chris Murray. I think that, he's 6'8", he's improved both years. The last 2 years he's improved. in college, and he has the length, he has the size, he has everything that you want. He has the attitude. He constantly improved at Iowa. I think he could be a guy that becomes you look at him in a few years and you're like, that was one of the steals of the draft in that mid-20s range. And he's going to go to a good team. I really believe that. I think that he could be an instant impact player in the next few years.
A lot of people think he might end up in Sacramento with his brother. So
I was going to say, I think that might be the one thing that kind of, I don't want to say goes against him, because I think he gets drafted higher because of how well Keegan did this past year.
It's fair. I don't think it goes against him. If I was him, I'd want to get drafted in that 20 to 29 range. The difference
That's what I'm saying.
15 to 20 from 20 to 25 is not much.
Yeah,
I'd rather go to a better team at that point.
I'd rather be in, let's say, for just argument's sake, I'd rather be in Memphis than, let's say, be in Toronto.
Any final
situation like that?
Any final thoughts on the draft before tomorrow night?
I'm just going to Grady Dick Fitzwell and OKC. I actually slightly disagree with that. You got to remember you're going to get Chet Holmgren back, and I have no idea how they would play on the court at the same time.
I just don't. He comes off so soft, and that's not like. So you're going to tell me you have a lineup with Chet Holmgren, Grady Dick, and SGA, Josh Giddey. I just feel like that's like a team that will physically get pounded. That sounded.
I don't disagree with you.
You said
disagree with you there.
So
I think the one other name that we haven't mentioned that Gene's been high on, I've been high on in years past, Keontae Johnson. I think he's a baller, and again has to go to a right fit. He's a second round projection, but that's a guy who, again, if I'm late in the first round, I'm thinking, why not try and hit a home run here? I don't want to just sack bunt, get the safe pick. I want to try and hit a home run. And I think Keontae Johnson can be that guy, or he can be a guy that just kind of fizzles out and is never big in the NBA. But I think he has the talent and the ability to be big. So I take a flyer on him as well.
Okay. Any final draft conversations before we move on? I think we nailed it pretty well. I think we went over a lot of it. A lot of things I want to talk about as far as MLB. Major League Baseball has, hit summer, and we say this all the time. It's hitting season.
It's hitting season, boys.
But the things that are really standing out to me, like, let's just start with this one, right? How about the Cincinnati Reds? Cincinnati Reds are on an 11-game win streak right now, led by rookie sensation Elly De La Cruz. This kid is unbelievable to watch. I love everything about him. He claims he's the fastest player in sports. Says he's the fastest guy in the world. I'm not getting that far in there, but he's been fun to watch. Your thoughts on the Cincinnati Reds? I don't think they can keep it up, but they got Jonathan India. They got Elly De La Cruz. They got a lot of guys on that team as a whole that can
They do. I mean, and they got Joey Bats back yesterday, so hit a home run.
Big hit.
Home run is his first game back. Listen, I mean, Cincinnati it falls in that category. It's the same as Pittsburgh. That's what they are. They usually have talent. They have decent teams, and then ownership doesn't want to pay for them, and they trade everybody off and they start all over. Joey Votto being the one exception. De La Cruz, he's electric, man. I mean, he's in that same group of like when Acuna came up, Soto, all those guys. Like he's that level player. That's what you're looking at. Tatis Jr. Throw them all, throw them all in a bucket. Like that is what he is. You're looking at one of the absolute future stars of this game. He does everything. He's 5'2", great head on his shoulders, really humble kid, which I love.
Except the fact that he's the fastest guy in the world.
I mean, that's kind of like whatever, I mean, that's more fun than anything. Yeah. But they got, they're the crazy thing is too, they just lost Green to the DL, their pitcher, but that division's winnable. I mean, we've talked about it. St. Louis has not gotten their act together. There's a lot of rumors coming out from the Cardinals that they're about to blow it up now. Milwaukee. We all know
I
what
just think
Milwaukee's.
they have no pitching, bro. They lost Nicola Dolo. He's basically done for the year. And Hunter Green's now in the DL. They have really no pitching. They have to consistently score 7, 8, 9 runs to win ball games.
But in that
They've been
division,
doing it.
you can do it. Nobody in that division has pitching. You look at Milwaukee, but I mean, Corbin Burns got smoked again the other night, and he's going to get traded. Brandon Woodruff's hurt. St. Louis has not gotten anything from anybody. Quintana, Flaherty, go down the list. I know Flaherty lost again yesterday. Maybe the Cubs, but the Cubs don't have an offense. So it's that, they would be that. I mean, I think, we looked at like the Pirates hot start and we're like, oh, this would be a really cool story. I think Cincinnati would be just as good a story if they won the division. I think somebody unexpected is coming out of that division, but he is he's legit. I mean, he's everything he was advertised. If you follow baseball or scouting, everybody's talking about him. For last 2-3 years, he's every goddamn thing that he was advertised to be.
They call him LA Baseball. I'm just kidding. I'm just making that.
I think the one thing with this Reds team that's so crazy at this point is obviously last year 100+ loss season, and everyone is quite literally, every Reds fan that I knew in Ohio was begging for their ownership to sell the team and get rid of it, and basically they essentially just start from scratch. It felt like it was disgraceful what the Reds have been doing, and now they're this exciting team that's on this 10-game win streak, and everybody's loving them. And then they brought up Ellie De La Cruz, and now he's been all over everywhere. And we're talking about him being the potential face of baseball soon, just because he's that electric. So it's crazy that the Reds are here at this point in the year. And I think the even crazier part about it is we talk about the Reds, but if you would have told me that the Reds and the Diamondbacks would have been leading their respective divisions at this point in the year, with us almost going into July, I would have looked at you like you had a third eyeball, just because, these weren't teams that we're expecting to be here. You got the Giants and the Dodgers in wild card spots right now. And you're talking about the Reds and the Diamondbacks having home field advantage in the playoffs. That'd be insane.
It's funny that you brought the Dodgers up. One of the questions I had for you guys was, are the Dodgers that we knew they were, the Dodgers that we've all become accustomed to of running away with that division, is that over? Because they just got swept at their home ballpark by a combined score, I think, of 29-8 by the Giants. I mean, the Giants absolutely beat up on them in their own ballpark. Are the Dodgers, as we know them, done?
I say,
go ahead.
I was going to say, only reason why I'm going to say no is because I feel like every time the Dodgers are going through something like this, they'll make a move at the deadline, and they might go in on the Corbin Burns sweepstakes and be right back where we know that they can be. So okay. I say no, because the Dodgers are always known to have this ace up their sleeve to go get a superstar and change the entire, course of action for the season. So I'm going to go with no.
Shally?
I think they have enough that they're eventually going to prevail. They're not going to be a 105-win team or anything like that. I also did warn you guys, not that you guys disagree, but I told everybody listening when we did a preview show, they were going to take a step back this year offensively.
I said San Diego wins that division. I was wrong there right now so far.
Yeah, I mean they're equally as a weird situation going on in San Diego, but I told you the Dodgers were not going to just steamroll people like they did last year. Now, the pitching Rice came out of the gate hot. He's cooled off a little bit. Clayton's actually stayed healthy and pitched well. It sucks they don't have Walker Buehler this year. I'm glad Cottrell mentioned Corbin Burns, because I think that's exactly who they're going to go and get. I don't think anybody saw this coming from Arizona. Arizona had talent, obviously. They're also playing out of their minds right now. And I just hate to say it, but it's kind of like the whole Moneyball thing. Like, eventually the numbers all play themselves out and, everything gets settled. I don't think Arizona's capable of playing, 650 baseball for the rest of the year. I just don't see it. I I think when it's all said and done, the Dodgers will win the division. I do think it's going to be close. I think it'll probably come down to the last week. San Diego's got to get their crap together as well. And San Francisco has kind of come out of nowhere and really thrown a wrench into it. And honestly, the Rockies aren't playing terrible. So, I mean, our
you know why they aren't playing terrible? Because the goddamn Guardians just gift wrapped them Nolan Jones, and he's been
they did
this ball. So
man, I'm watching a great argument in our comments between Karam and the East Side Herald. It's hilarious. One's an Astros fan, one's a Rangers fan. They're going at it.
Astros are slumping too. They don't look good either. They did have a big win last night though, but they'd Framber on the mound. So
when you look at the San Diego Padres, and I'm just going through their lineup, Xander's batting 260, Juan Soto's batting 260, and Tatis is batting 291. The rest of their team is severely underperforming hitting. Jake Cronenworth's batting 209. I don't think Jake Cronenworth's batting 209 since the Reagan administration. I think he might have been like 8 and under batting 209. Jake Cronenworth never bats 209. Trent Grisham's batting under 200. The guy was all world in the playoffs last year. He's batting 197. The guy they replaced Tatis with at short was supposed to be their shortstop before they signed Xander was Heyo Sim. Kim, who had a great postseason, he's batting 250. Matt Carpenter's batting 180. That team as a whole is just not hitting the baseball, and it's very obvious that I kind of feel for them over there in San Diego, but
I do not. But you can't spend that much. You're not going to spend all that money and make me feel bad for it.
And then
not going to happen. Yeah. Listen, Juan is not being Juan right now. Showing flashes of it, but he had it up to like 279, like I'd say like a week and a half ago. He went right back, like geez, he's back to 260 now. Xander's not been anywhere close to Xander. Machado's been hurt in out of the lineup, and when he is playing, he's hitting like 220. We mentioned Jake's struggles, and on top of that, they're not getting great pitching. This is a team that turned it on down the stretch last year and got in and pitched really well in the playoffs. They kind of went back to midseason form from last year, and I think with that division being a lot better now, they're in legit trouble now. Like they are. Nobody thought Colorado was going to be close to 500. Nobody thought Arizona was going to be winning the division. And San Francisco, I think everybody had labeled in for, at least 90 losses, and they're not going to do that now.
If I told you the just for fun, right? Who's the Padres' best pitcher right now? I know the answer, but it's going to shock some people that are fully casual in the MLB season.
I know who it's not, so.
It's not you. It's not you.
It's not you. It's not Blake.
Well, Blake's second.
Musgrove's been terrible.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely not Musgrove. That's what I was going to say. It's not.
Is it Clevenger?
Dude, it's Michael Waka. I am so floored. If you told me at the beginning of the season that Michael Waka would be the best pitcher on the Padres, I would have projected this record also.
Then again, though, we talked about teams that can. We talked about Cincinnati. Actually, Cincinnati was a team, that their pitching has been depleted now, but they got the offense to score 6, 7, 8, 9 runs. San Diego's supposed to be that team as well. Like when you got Machado and Bogarts and Tatis and Soto, like you're supposed to be able to not rely on pitching. Like if I'm looking at that team, and I get it, pitching is the most important thing when it comes to baseball. But when you have those guys, we saw what the Yankees have been doing, and we've been talking about them needing a pitcher since the show's existence in the first episode. So, I mean,
they still need them,
but they keep making the playoffs, and they don't look like this. Is what I'm getting at. So,
I mean, listen, the AL East is a flip of a coin too, man. I mean, you have a bad week, you can go from second to basement real quick.
Don't do this to me because I'm about to ask a question right now. Because one of my questions on my list, I did a lot of questions for MLB. Is the AL East the best division in the history of baseball?
The history of baseball?
So follow me real quick. Do you guys have any idea what the best winning percentage by a division is ever?
No.
I don't.
Happened 3 years ago.
I was going to say I don't, but I'd imagine it's – it's probably a short list of times where all 5 teams in the division went over 500.
So 603 was the best, and it was 2020. It was the pandemic year. But the best division ever win-wise was the AL West in 02 that had a 601 win percentage in a 162-game season, right? That's
What
the best
year?
for a 5-team division ever, 2002 AL West.
Was that the year the Mariners broke the record?
100%.
Okay.
So my question would be, right now as it stands, I believe the win percentage average in the division is 596. My question is this the best division we've ever seen? Do you think it's going to get worse or better? They have all 5 teams have a plus run differential. The Red Sox, who are in last place, are 39-35 with a 527 win percentage and a plus 30 run differential. Whereas you look at a division like the NL Central, where every team except one has a minus differential, or a division like the NL Central, AL Central and the NL Central. Is it the best division we've ever seen?
I'm going to go with no. And I'm going to tell you, I think that number is being carried a lot with the hot starts that Tampa Bay and Baltimore both had.
Okay.
Not that they're backing up dramatically, but they're slowing down. I mean, no team ever is going to play at an 80% win percentage rate. That's just unreal. So, which is where Tampa Bay was for a couple of weeks. That's all going to back up. And the other problem you're going to have is down the stretch they're going to play each other a lot. So it's you're going to start treading water. Like, yeah, Toronto might win a game, but they're playing Baltimore, so Baltimore lost the game. I don't think you get there.
Before you finish that, that's where I think the new schedule actually helps this conversation, because you don't play each other as much as you used to. You used to play division teams 19 times. Now you're playing them, what, 12? Is it 12?
No, it's more than that, because we had this discussion like 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about something, and I said, like, at that point, Tampa Bay still had like 15 divisional games left, and they all had 10 plus. Like, it's still, they're all going to play each other a bunch still. So I think it's going to come down. You got injuries happen. It's, I think if just one of the teams at all begins to fall apart, it's going to ruin it.
14 times. No, 13 times. The New Balance schedule, 13. I said 12. I was off by 1.
So I don't think they get there. I'm not saying it's not a good division. It's a very good division. One of the better ones we've seen in a long time. I don't think they hit 603 though. I'll go no.
601. They would have to hit 602. 603 was the 2020 year.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll still go no.
Cottrell, you want to be bold?
No, I'm gonna go no as well. And a lot of it, I think, is
interesting thought though. We're talking about the AL East, Trey.
It's definitely an interesting thought, but I think Shally's point of the Rays aren't going to stay this hot. Are they still going to be dominant? Are they still probably going to win that division? They play like this, absolutely. But I don't see them keeping this up. At some point, I do think Baltimore slides just a little bit. I do think that, with their core and how they've been playing, I think they're serious, and I do think that they ultimately make the playoffs. But I don't know. I don't think the Yankees having their injury, the Yankees always have their injury bug. Right now, Judge is out. If that's just a continuous ongoing thing for them, maybe they don't end the season how we projected them to end it at the beginning of the year. So I just think there's just so many factors right now that are pointing me in the direction of this isn't going to end how it looks right now.
Okay, that's fair. I'm no arguments for me. Just asking the question. I think it's worth talking about, though. Any final thoughts, Major League Baseball, before we get into our kickers list? I feel like that are my questions.
I mean, I'm surprised the one you didn't mention. I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts about how the NL East is looking right now. Clearly, the Mets don't want to win baseball games.
Well, the reason I don't mention the Philadelphia Phillies on this show, and I try not to mention them because they are one of the most maddening, frustrating teams ever. Let me be clear. They're 15-3 in their last 18. And you would think that would make me happy, right?
Yeah.
They can't beat good teams. It just drives me nuts. They play good teams. Like they beat the Tigers. They beat you're beating teams that you should beat and destroy, and they're winning series. They beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 2 out of 3. That's fun to watch. They beat the Dodgers. They beat Diamondbacks 3 out of 4. They beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3. But they played the Braves, and it was just same old Phillies. Rob Thompson coached a terrible game, and Phillies lost the game 4-2. And I just feel like that for loaded as a roster they are to be 38 and 35, they're not exciting right now to me.
You guys are just outside the wild card right now, like as it stands.
Let me check. I don't know I don't look at the wild card until August because
I mean I know it is going to be changing all the time, but I just want to.
Yeah, they're 2 games out of wild card behind the Dodgers.
Okay.
Right now the 3 wild card teams are the Giants. Giants won 9 straight. That's who you want to talk about. The Giants, Marlins, who will fall off, and the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy. Miami's hanging in there with Sandy having a bad year, which is even more surprising to me.
Dude.
Now we're talking about the Marlins. I got to ask the other one. Does he crack 400 for the year?
No, but he's ridiculously. He's such a good singles hitter, a good contact hitter. I don't think I've seen anything like it. You're talking about a guy that's got 105 hits already for the season, and only 18 are extra base hits. Do you realize how rare that is?
Mm-hmm.
That is so absurd.
Over under 380.
Under. That's a good question, though.
Give me the over.
Have you ever seen somebody with a 398 batting average with less than a 3.1 WAR? I'm not trying to be
That's why, because they just
I was gonna say he's not
signals around, and that's what he does. I mean, he's not. I'm
sure
5 for 5 night the other night.
How many runs has he scored at this point too? Because just him getting on base, it's not necessarily helping Miami.
I mean, he's scored 31 so far.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is Brian De La Cruz over there is having a hell of a year. He's batting 274, but he's giving you 8 home runs. He also has 70 or 30 runs scored. I think that you look at a lot of guys on that team that are really producing. Jorge Soler's got 21 home runs already.
Soler's the guy.
Agreed.
He's back to Soler from 4 years ago.
Any other questions, MLB, before we move on to our kickers list? All right. I just always try to give you guys a floor in case I miss something. I never like to miss something for you guys. I hope the graphic shows up. The last graphic didn't work on the screen. It wasn't showing up on Facebook. Throw the graphic up right now. I'll tell you if it pops up almost nearly immediately. We'll see shortly. But this is our wire-to-wire top 10 kickers list. I'm super excited about it. Yeah, it's not showing up. It's blank on the screen. We might as well leave it off, and we know our own kickers list, and we'll figure out what's going wrong as far as restream is right now. But our graphic isn't working. So I always want you to wrap. Okay.
It showed up on mine.
It doesn't show up on Facebook though. Showing up on the screen, but it's not showing up on Facebook. Hopefully it shows up with the restart. There it is. Good job. My God.
There you go.
All right. So this is our wire-to-wire top 10 NFL kickers. Thank God we all have Justin Tucker for one. But you're just looking at this now. I love it because we don't show each other this list. Before you go, Shally, you were woo. I just need to hear what was the big woo. Like, what was the thing?
Bro, Daniel Carlson number 5 is disrespectful. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Listen, I like that you gave my boy Moody some credit. I wasn't even gonna do that.
This is a projections list.
It is. I like everything but number 5 actually on yours. I don't mind anything else.
Okay, so I think that Las Vegas as a whole is going to have a weaker offense as a whole. I don't think Carlson's going to kick as many field goals, and I just truly believe that Las Vegas is. You know what I think is going to be Las Vegas' starting quarterback week 1?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Nope, Carson Wentz.
Oh,
I
Christ.
think Garoppolo is going to fail his physical. I think Wentz has been working out with Gruden down in Las Vegas. I mean, down in Florida. And I think that he still has connections to that franchise. And I truly believe that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to bring in Carson Wentz to play quarterback for them this year.
How crazy would that be if like Gruden saves his career? That'd be wild.
Saves his career and then sends him to where
yeah,
he got fired.
Am I the only one that has a punter on the list? Yes, I am. No. Yeah, I'm the only one that has a punter on the list.
Yep.
I think that he's a weapon. He's an absolute. I almost wanted to put Matt Ariza on the list. I want to give him some credit. I think he's going to sign on to a team and be a great punter.
That's a travesty.
Agreed.
Yeah, he's definitely a weapon.
It's interesting how we did this list, though. Cottrell might as well start us off, and we'll start a wraparound.
Damn, I'm the only guy that didn't put Moody on his list. Damn.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't have Moody on your list because the San Francisco 49ers are going to score a ton of points. The reason why they brought him into town was obviously they didn't want to pay Robbie Gould, but they wanted a reliable kicker who's accurate. You know, there's a reason why they jumped the gun and took him in the third round. And I think he's going to have a ton of opportunity with that San Francisco 49ers team because they have a defense that takes the ball away. So they're going to have short field and they have an offense that's explosive. So I think Jake Moody, when it's all said and done, is going to have a ton of opportunity to kick great kicks. And he's going to be playing the majority of it in these great weather stadiums. You know, he's going to be his home stadium is San Francisco. And then outside of going to Seattle in the winter, all the other stadiums in the division, he's going to be perfectly fine in. So I like Jake Moody coming into my number 10.
That's interesting because one thing we'll talk in a minute. When it's my turn, I'll go. I don't want to.
So number 10, I'm going with Young Ho Koo from Atlanta. Super accurate kicker.
I love how we never pronounce his name right. It's Young Wei.
Right. It is Young Wei for sure.
He's a young ho.
I knew you were going to go there. Go ahead.
Listen, I like him. You know, he's another one. He benefits from kicking in a lot of domes. Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina usually doesn't have bad weather, and then obviously Tampa Bay. So I mean, that's 8 games a year right there. Very accurate. Just doesn't have the leg. I think he had 6 misses last year. 4 of them were from over 50. It's just that is his Achilles heel. You know. For lack of a horrible joke, but he is
not a joke though. He is the most accurate kicker in the NFL from under 50 yards in the last 3 years. He doesn't miss from less than 50.
Yeah, it's just when you go over 50. I mean, listen, if you're a kicker and you want to be a weapon, I can't always get you to the 30-yard line. You know, sometimes I'm only going to get you to 35, and that makes him not as accurate and not as clutch. So. Put him on my list. Got to respect what he does from 50 in, but 50 out. You know, a lot of the guys ahead of can make a lot of long kicks. So number 10 for me, my Young Ho.
I got Young Ho number 10 too for all the reasons that Showie said. Most accurate kicker when you're inside 40 yards or below. But I will say this, right? If you can't kick the ball over 50 yards and you cannot give your team those extra points, that 55-yard, that 58-yard, where your team might just gives them a little bit of energy, especially in a dome, in a beautiful stadium. He kicks in Atlanta. You can't be any higher than number 10 on my list. Number 9 is a guy that kicks in a lot of wet conditions. Jason Myers in Seattle. Jason Myers has absolutely kicked the crap out of the ball in some of the worst conditions. So I got Jason Myers number 9. I love him here. I could have had him even higher. I love what he does in Seattle. And Jason Myers, my number
9. Number 9, I got a guy that actually filled in for the Eagles for 2 weeks. And then we released him before Jake Elliott came back. But that's going to be Cameron Licker before you dicker, the kicker. Very, very good leg. Going to play a lot of games out west with a lot of, really warm weather again. Guy that's on the rise, not quite in the top 5, not in the upper echelon yet, has the potential to get there. Very good leg, accurate. Chargers finally settled on the kicker after going through, a carousel of guys over the last 3 or 4 years. They like him. They kept him. I think he has a lot of potential to be higher up on this list next year. Weather will also help him. He's going to play in SoFi a bunch of games. And then, obviously you're talking about Vegas. KC and Denver can get a little sketchy, obviously, in the winter, but, he held his own there last year. So number 9 for me, Cameron Dicker.
So number nine for me is a guy who actually struggled a bit last year, and that's Will Lutz. Will Lutz was struggling from 40 to 50-yard range, and I think a lot of that is because of his return from his injury. I think Will Lutz is a guy we've seen a couple years ago where he's hitting these 50+ yarders rather consistently, and I love the leg that he has. He hit a 60-yarder. You saw him hit the big kick when they were in London against that Minnesota Vikings team. And I really love what Will Lutz looks like at his best. And I think he rebounds. We talked about Young Wei Koo being in that NFC South division. I think Will Lutz, obviously is going to be playing in all the same stadiums. So I think Will Lutz has a big time bounce back year this upcoming year. And not to mention the fact that now they have a quarterback. They got Derek Carr there, who's going to put him in better situations as well. So I think Will Lutz has a bounce back year. My number 8 is a guy you both have mentioned already, Young Wei Koo. Not much more really needs to be said about him. He's super accurate when he's inside of 50 yards. When it's anything further than that, things do get a little bit shaky. But when you're as accurate as he is, and he's basically a bona fide bucket. If you get him somewhere inside that 30-yard line, you got to be on this list. So for me, he comes in at number 8.
Trey, if you just hang on for 1 second, I have so many stats to back up why I have a punter on this list. This is a kicker/punter list. I'm Charles didn't want to put it on the graphic because he wants to make me look bad, and that's okay. I'm kidding, but trust me, I will feed you, baby bird. Just hold on 1 second.
I will not keep the audience waiting. I got Matt Gay, number 8. Let go of the Rams, settled in Indy. Again, going to kick it in dome most of the time, warm weather. Listen, it's a guy that, was kind of in and out of the NFL for a couple years. Finally found a home with the Rams. Now he's with the Colts. I think the Colts are going to score a decent amount of points this year. I think he's going to have a lot of chance to kick field goals. They're going to start a rookie quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Regained his accuracy the last 2 years. Was down in the 70s for a while. He's up in the mid to upper 80s now. Strong leg. Made a lot of big kicks at a big time. Super Bowl winning kicker. Number 8 for me, Matt Gay.
All right, so I just want to read some things off to you guys. I got Tommy Townsend at number 8. He's the punter for the Kansas City Chiefs, if you didn't know this. But here's some wild stats for you. Last year, Tommy Townsend averaged 50.4 yards per punt. He only had 4 touchbacks, so these were net punts. His net was number 1 in the NFL at 45.6. His touchback percentage was 7.55. His inside the 20, coffin corner kick, 41.51% of his punts, 22 times. That's a weapon. All right, you want to hear something even wilder about this? So he's kicking the ball 50 yards inside the 20-yard line 22 times. Let's take this a step further. How many yards returned? That's always a kicker stat to me. Total for the year, 22 kicks returned for 176 total yards. He was the only punter in football with that qualified that had under 200 punt return yards. This man is a weapon. Field position is a thing. Listen, I would not put Tommy Townsend, a punter, on this list if I wasn't going to come correct with some stats. This man is an absolute weapon for field position. Tommy Townsend's my number 8. Number 7 on my list. You take a kicker in the 3rd round, he better be good. Jake Moody, guy kicked out of Michigan. Most times kickers that get drafted high get drafted from warm weather situations into cold weather situations. So, like, for instance, last year, Cade York. I had Cade York on my list at number 10. I wish I could have put him on my list this year. I think after a year of getting conditioned to what Cleveland is, I think he'll be fine. But you took Cade York out of LSU and he went to Cleveland. It's huge. We're taking Jake Moody out of Michigan, out of the big house, rain, snow, sleet. This man's kicked in it all. And bringing him to San Francisco with that offense, Jake Moody's going to run up. Listen, don't be shocked if Jake Moody's in the top 5 next year. You don't take a kicker in the 3rd round if he doesn't have the juice. And this man came from Michigan, and he's moving to San Francisco. Warm weather. I got Jake Moody, number 7.
Number 7, I got Graham Cano. Used to play for the Panthers, kind of got run out of town there. Had a couple tryouts, went to a couple different teams for short spurts as injuries, and then caught on with the Giants and has really resurrected his career the last 2 years. Playing in the Meadowlands, East Rutherford, whatever you want to call it. Not the easiest stadium in the world to kick in. Cold weather during the winter. Was up around, I believe, 78%, somewhere up there for his kicks over 50 last year. Made a bunch of really big kicks for the Giants down the stretch to win games, keep them in games. Eventually into a playoff berth. I think he stays pretty much, where he was last year. I think he's definitely a top 10 kicker again. Only thing with him is he is one of the proverbial, I don't want to say a head case, but if he starts missing kicks, his confidence goes to crap real quick. But last year he didn't. Got to give him his credit. I think he has another good year. The Giants' offense should be improved. He should have the opportunity to kick a bunch of field goals and extra points. I think he'll score well. I think he'll be a top 10 in scoring. So I got Graham Gano at number 7.
So my number 7 is a guy who, a guy that Gene already mentioned already, and that's Jason Myers. Jason Myers is a gamer. He's one of those guys that no matter what, he's going to be super consistent for you. Last year, he was towards the top in, field goal percentage. I think he was somewhere close to 92%. And him being able to do that when his primary stadium is Seattle, when we know it can get crazy there weather-wise towards the back half of the year, I think that's really special. And so Jason Myers, how consistent he is, he has the leg to kick from deep as well. I think he's more than deserving to be on this list. My number 6 is a guy who he didn't necessarily struggle a bit last year, but he was oftentimes just injured last year. That's Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott, when healthy, is a phenomenal weapon for that Philadelphia Eagles team. Last year, we just didn't see the reps because he did miss some games. But when he's out there, again, this is another guy who is consistent. He has the accuracy. He has the leg to be behind him. You can trot him out there from 57 and still be comfortable that, he'll be able to hit that as well. So I like Jake Elliott this year to have a bounce back year. He'll play a lot more, and that Eagles offense is going to absolutely roll. So Jake Elliott will be put in plenty positions to score a lot of points this upcoming season.
I have Jake Elliott as well. Number 6, my guy, my kicker. The biggest thing that hurt him last year, honest to God, was the efficiency of the Eagles offense. They didn't kick a ton of field goals because every time they got in the red zone, they scored. Was great on extra points last year. Was 85.8%, I believe, on his field goals. He's shown before he's got the leg to kick it from 55 plus, maybe even 60 if the conditions are right. Definitely a top 10 kicker in the league. Hurts in that offense, and the boys actually hurt him a little bit for not being higher because, like I said, he doesn't get a ton of field goal chances because they score all the time. But definitely deserves to be on the list. Number 6 for me.
Jake Elliott used to have a huge issue with kicking extra points. Last year, he eliminated that issue, and he was actually a little higher than you gave him credit for, 87%. My number 6 is Harrison Butker. Harrison, big leg, huge leg, sometimes drifts a little bit. Last year, he missed 6 kicks, which is a career high for him. He's got a huge leg, though. Harrison can kick the crap out of the ball. Top 6, 7 kicker in the league. I think that he's probably the 7th best kicker in football. I have him 6th for this year. Kansas City offense scores a ton of points. My number 5 is Daniel Carlson. Daniel Carson's not a top 6 or 7 kicker in football. He's probably top 3 kicker in football. Daniel Carson has a leg. He's unbelievable. Here's the problem. I don't think Las Vegas is going to score a lot of points this year. And there's nothing against Daniel Carson. I just don't think he's going to get the opportunities. So I have Daniel Carson number 5.
Number 5 for me, I got Tyler Bass. Buffalo. He's the epitome of learning how to kick a football in really bad weather. In Buffalo, you could be kicking in a blizzard with a foot of snow on the ground. You could be kicking in winds that are going 50 miles per hour from one side of the field to the next. He, for lack of a better term, suffers a little bit for the same things Jake Elliott does. Buffalo scores a lot of touchdowns, a lot of extra points. But, that division does him no favors with weather. Between Buffalo, New England, the Jets, New York's no, cakewalk in the winter as well. His only really break is when he goes down to Miami, but that's only one game a year. So, I had this kid on my list last year. Continues to stay in the top 5. He's a scrappy little guy too. I like him. Again, he's going to score a lot of points. His accuracy stats are going to be off a little bit, but he gets a little bit of margin of error for having to kick in Buffalo.
Dylan, I love you, man. Stick to something else instead of kickers. McManus missed 8 field goals last year.
He doesn't have a job right now.
He does in Jacksonville. He got signed already.
I'm busting.
I don't disagree though. I am one of the bigger McManus fans. He had a really bad year last year.
Really bad year.
I mean, I do think part of it too is, him kicking in. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but him kicking in Denver. Sometimes they do trot him out there for ridiculously long field goals, so that of course hurts his percentage.
But Brandon missed 1 from 20 to 29. He missed 2 from 30 to 39.
Yeah.
So he missed a couple from over 50. But the truth is, he really had a lot of real easy kicks that he missed.
Yeah, and I'm not going to bat for him. I'm just saying his percentage is going to look lower because of them being at altitude, and Brandon McManus has that crazy leg to back it up. So they might go trot him out there for 61 yards, just, end of a half or things like that, just because they know he has the ability to make it. But I don't have him on my top 10 list. But my number 5 is a guy that Gene just talked about, and that's Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker, I get it. He did miss 6 kicks this past year. That has been the most that he's missed in his entire career. I believe it was the game against the Chargers. It was in LA. I think he was hurt, and he was playing hurt. And if you're out there, I don't use that as an excuse. But for kickers specifically, if they're not right, they're not going to be able to do their job efficiently. And that's a big part of why you didn't see the numbers that Harrison Butker had this past season, just because he didn't really have the opportunity. He missed some games with his injuries, and I think he has a bounce back year this year. He has that big leg. He's typically, accurate, and you can trot him out there from 55 plus and be comfortable with the results when it's all said and done. So for me, Harrison Butker comes in at number 5. I think stays healthy, has that bounce back year. Number 4, I'm rolling with Tyler Bass. Tyler Bass is a guy in Buffalo, super consistent. And Bill, you just mentioned Tyler Bass. The reason why I have him ahead of Harrison Butker is because he's doing it in conditions that are worse than Kansas City. I get it. Kansas City can be brutal as well, but the sideways snow and the things you would see from Buffalo and things like that. I got to go Tyler Bass here ahead of Harrison Butker.
Number 4, I got Butker. I think they're very easily to be, switched in place of each other. I went Butker simply because I do think he has a better leg. Kansas City, again, is no treat to kick in the winter. It gets freezing cold there. It's like kicking a goddamn rock off the ground. They have wind issues there as well. And then on top of everything else, I think he's just got more opportunities. I think he'll outpace Bass slightly in scoring. That's the biggest reason I have him number 4. But he's made a bunch of big kicks in his career, has the leg, more than enough leg to be in the top 3 or 4 here. And again, weather in Kansas City is no joke either. So I have him number 4.
So notice something about my list. My top 4 kickers are all in cold weather scenarios. I'm not picking these kickers just based off of who's going to score the most points. I'm projecting who's going to kick the biggest kicks and the hardest kicks and when they're going to do it. All 4 of these guys up here kick in cold weather cities. Jake Elliott, number 4. Jake used to have an issue with kicking extra points. He did not have an issue with kicking extra points last year. 51 of 53. No issues whatsoever. 87% field goal rate, shooting field goals. Missed only 2 kicks over 50 and 1 kick from 40 to 49. He has put that to bed, where any issues that he's had kicking short range kicks and having any type of issues there. That's my number 4. Love me some Jake Elliott. Number 3 is Tyler Bass. I have him higher than both of you guys do. And it's nothing against the kickers you guys have here, but Tyler Bass kicks in the worst weather city you can kick in. It's worse to kick in Buffalo than it is even in New England. Buffalo plays in so many freezing games, so many snow games. It's right off of the river, so the wind is insanity in Buffalo. It's the worst weather city to kick in, and this guy kicks at 87.1%, over 50. He's 4 for 6. I got to give him his credit where credit's due. And not to mention, he does play a road game at New England. So this guy has so many cold weather cities that he kicks in, and he still does it at an extremely accurate rate. So my number 3 is Tyler Bass.
Number 3, I'm going with Evan McPherson. Money back. Had a great rookie year. Took a little bit of a step back last year. Still has the leg, still has the confidence. Cincinnati, not a great place to kick in the winter as well. Not as bad as some other places. Does get the kick off of turf, which is a little bit of an advantage versus like somebody like Bucker or some of the other guys like Jake. But he has the leg. He has the belief that he can do it because he's done it before. We've all seen the viral clips of him telling Burrow, we're going to the Super Bowl, like all that stuff. He has the swagger. He has the swagger to be a very successful kicker, which is part of it. He's confident in himself. He just took a step backwards last year. I still have him up here because I have a lot of confidence in him, but he's got to regain form a little bit, take it a little bit more serious this year. I think his rookie year came too easy for him. Got a lot of notoriety very quickly with all the kicks he made, and then obviously going to the Super Bowl. But I have him number 3. I think he bounces back. Again, Cincinnati is not going to be hurt for scoring. I think he'll score well, but I have him number 3. It's just not top 2 for me this year.
Got money back number 3 as well. I think for me, talent-wise, that's why he's here. I know he's going to be a clutch kicker. When there is no moment that's going to be too bright for him. The only reason why he's at 3, I think he could be 2. Like, I have no issue with Gene having him at 2. My only thing is that, the 2 guys that I have in front of him have done it consistently. And, more recently is for Carlson, he's just done it at a better clip. Now, Money Mac, he can kick you a 58-yarder. He kicked the 58-yarder to send the Bengals to the Super Bowl and things like that. But my number 2 guy, Daniel Carlson, last year he led the league in kicks, made kicks from 50+. Gene talked about the Raiders not being put in positions to score a lot of points. I kind of think the opposite. I think they're going to be right in that tweener range, and with them having so much uncertainty, you could argue that, outside of Max Crosby on their defense, you could argue that Daniel Carlson's their second best asset on this team, or most reliable asset on this team. So I think they'll trot him out there in a lot of those situations because you're not going to trust Jimmy G, or if you go get another quarterback, you're not going to trust them to make this, 4th and 5 or 4th and 8 or anything like that. So Carlson has shown you he has the consistency and he has the accuracy. So I'm rolling with Daniel Carlson as my number 2 kicker.
I'm going to go with Daniel Carlson, number 2 as well. Last year I had him, I believe, at 5, and I said I think he's going to move up the list because I think he's going to keep getting better. He is a younger guy. Great leg. Does have the benefit of kicking in 2 good stadiums most of the time. Depending on, when their away games are against Denver and KC, it can be a little tricky there. But, again, has the leg to handle both. Really good from deep. If I couldn't take who I have number 1, this would be the next guy I would take if I was drafting a kicker in real life. I think the biggest thing with him is when I watch him kick, he kicks the ball a lot like the guy I have on number 1. Not quite to that level. Same kind of trajectory, same kind of power, spin. It's all there. Every advanced stat that you want for the kickers, it's right there, and he's right in line with the guy at number 1. So number 1 for me, or number 2 for me, I have Daniel Carlson all day from the Raiders.
I got a weird stat for you guys. Did you know Evan McPherson has only missed 1 kick in the month of January ever in his career? And it was an extra point. Evan McPherson as a kicker in clutch moments, I feel like he has a little bit of, and this is just my personal opinion, and I don't know the guy very well, but judging by his personality, this is just an opinionated comment. I feel like he sometimes when the moment's not really big, has a little bit of boredom, and will sometimes miss a kick in the beginning of the year in a game that's inconsequential, in a moment that might be inconsequential. But when the moment's big, clutch time kicking, there's only one kicker that's better than Evan McPherson, and that's who I have at my number one, Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker is the best kicker this game has ever seen. There's no doubt about it. I have not Vinatieri, not anyone. There's no one close. The greatest kicker we have ever seen, Justin Tucker. I will never not have him on number one on my list unless he blows his leg out. Number one is Justin Tucker.
Yeah. I mean, he is the GOAT. He is the best kicker to ever do it, in my opinion. He continues to put space between him and everybody else every single year, which is crazy. Still at a relatively young age for kickers. He's only 34. He'll be kicking for a while. Again, kicks in a cold weather city in Buffalo. That's kind of what makes the numbers that he puts up more staggering. The man hasn't missed a 50-plus yard field goal in the fourth quarter in his career. It's just batty. Again, Baltimore is not the most pleasant, climate in December and January. It gets nasty down there. He makes everything. They've trotted him out for 65-yard field goals because he can damn near make them. He owns the record in the NFL. He's just the best to ever do it. He takes it very seriously. He takes very good care of his body. He does Gene mentioned it earlier with, I think, LeBron or somebody, but he invests a lot of money in his body. He's very good at keeping up his flexibility, his leg strength. He's just different. For a kicker, he's just different. He's number one. He's the GOAT. He's going to, for everybody that's listening to this, he's going to be the best kicker you've ever seen play football.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about kickers. We do a top 10 list every week, Harold. We do a top 10 list every single week. Starts with kickers. Next week, it'll be safeties, then corners, leading up to the NFL season. So we start off with kickers. This is the kick off the list. And, we're giving you a top 10 list everywhere.
So my number one, you guys have already stolen all the thunder about Justin Tucker. I think the one interesting thing is that you could argue if you just look at him statistically, he's probably coming off of one of his, worst seasons statistically, where he had technically 6 missed field goals. The weird thing about it is 3 of them were blocked and 2 of them he missed from 60 plus. So in reality of, just normal makeable kicks, he really only missed 1 this past season. So, numbers don't always tell the full story there, but Justin Tucker is the most reliable. He's the best kicker we have ever seen. There's really no debate here either. I mean, I don't think there's a situation. There's a 70-yard kick. If it's like 4th and 20, 70-yard kick, I'm trotting out Justin Tucker, and I'm okay with whatever the results are. So Justin Tucker is just one of those guys that true X factor, true difference maker. If you're anywhere on the opposite side of that 50-yard line, you're in a position where Justin Tucker can make you a kick to put you some points up on the board. So Justin Tucker's number one for me, and it's not particularly close either. So,
all right. So that's it for our kickers list.
Quarterback list.
That's it for our kickers list. Oh man, is this guy a Ohio State guy?
No, he's a Texans fan.
He's
Will Anderson.
Yeah, I got it now. Will Anderson is going to be on my list. I'll tell you that right now. Will Anderson is going to be unbelievable in the NFL.
Will probably will be. CJ Stroud ain't going to be on nobody's list, though.
Will Anderson is going to get triple teamed in Houston because there's nobody on the opposite side of him.
I don't think Cottrell even put CJ on his damn list.
Absolutely not.
So let's get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. We got to wrap up. We got the Hockey and Sports Show for Sports Empire Network that starts at 9 o'clock. So let's get into You Got to Be Kidding Me so we don't run too far over on time. Apologize to the Hockey and Sports Show.
Perfect. So
Hockey's
real quick for me, we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. Brandon Miller is my You Got to Be Kidding Me. There was a question asked in his pre-draft process about who he considers the GOAT. And he had just mentioned that he had met Michael Jordan and, it was great meeting him and everything like that. But that's not his GOAT. He doesn't consider LeBron his GOAT. The guy he called his GOAT was Paul George. He said Paul George was the guy that he grew up watching, and that's who he thinks is the greatest of all time. as a guy who's coming into the league, who's a special talent, and I get it, Gene even compared his talents to Paul George, and I think that's pretty accurate. But Paul George was never a top 5 player in the NBA. Even at his peak, when he was in Indiana, you never put Paul George ahead of Kobe. Like, Kobe was still playing in Paul George's prime. You got LeBron that was still playing then. D Wade was in his prime. There's so many other players. You could say you like Paul George, but don't go out there and say Paul George is your GOAT. You just sound foolish. And that mixed in with the decision-making that you made off the court, with, the whole court case and things like that, I got to really question where your mind is at. So Brandon Miller for saying Paul George is his GOAT, at his pre-draft process.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
Love it. Terrible. Shally.
For mine, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves organization. This one's funny because originally, before they screwed us up, they were doing a really cool thing. So Charlie Culberson had been called up from Gwinnett AAA. Was on the roster for 27 days, had not even made an appearance yet. Not even a pinch hit, pinch run, nothing. Like, he's like Rudy. Couldn't get into a game. So the Braves go out and make a nice gesture. They're like, hey, we're going to surprise him, and we're going to have his dad throw out the first pitch on the Father's Day game to him. They then go and screw this entire thing up by DFAing Charlie Culberson on Father's Day and sending him back down to AAA. His father is now in the stadium, is not throwing out the first pitch anymore. Apparently half the team didn't even realize he got sent down. And they had a pull. I can't remember who it was, but somebody else's father was randomly in the stands. So they pulled him out to throw the first pitch and just messed this whole thing up and embarrassed him. He was in the clubhouse getting ready to go out when he found out he got sent down. He found out from the reporters before the team even told him. So now he's like, worried and scrambling, like, oh, what am I going to tell my dad? Like, whatever. The Braves just dropped the ball at every turn of this entire situation. And on top of everything else, since I hate them, I couldn't wait to bury them this week. So the Atlanta Braves for me this week.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
All right, so mine this week is Tyreek Hill. I just want to read something out loud to you guys, just so you understand what type of person Tyreek Hill is. In 2014, Hill was arrested and charged with domestic assault and battery by strangulation. Crystal Espinala, Hill's then girlfriend and later ex-fiance, told police that Hill struck her in the face and in stomach and also choked her. Espinal was 8 weeks pregnant with Tyreek Hill's child. Real great guy. Okay, let's start there. Tyreek Hill won't face criminal charges for allegedly hitting a marina employee. Does not mean he'll avoid NFL scrutiny. Tyreek Hill alleged smacked an employee at the marina in the back of the neck, then charged at him. And I can't tell you how many times, like how we said this. As soon as Tyreek Hill got shipped to Miami, we're like, this is a bad situation. You're going to put Tyreek Hill in Miami in that situation with all that money, and it's not going to end well for Tyreek Hill's career. This is just step one. For someone to have that happen to them right before they get drafted in the NFL and then allow that to happen a second time, look, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. No charges were brought against him. But it's one of those things. And I'm shocked no one used Jack Jones, because Jack Jones needs to be on this damn list too. From New England. It's just embarrassing to me. What sense that you have all that money in the world and you need to hit an employee? Like, I'm 37 years old. I don't think I've punched anybody or hit anybody in years. 15 years. It's really easy to not punch someone or hit somebody. And if I had $30 million a year sitting in my bank account and to not hit somebody, I would think that I think it would be even less of a chance of me hitting someone. So for that this week, Tyreek Hill and Jack Jones, who friggin' carried a gun into an airport. Like, what are you doing, man? But I don't have all the details on either one, so I'll just give them a half of come on.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh, What a fun show, gentlemen. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Nothing for me. We got two idiots that had, Jack Jones was really came out of nowhere, special talent. Worked his way into that Patriots roster, and now he did that. And Bill Belichick is very much a no nonsense guy. So,
did you hear Jack Jones tweet it like a month ago, talking about Ja Morant, like what an idiot, they'd be carrying around a gun and blah blah blah. That's a real thing. Like that really happened. Shally, any final thoughts?
Nada. People got to stop carrying around guns. Idiots.
I don't get it. It's just Jack Jones called Morant dumb and told him to put the guns down. Like, and then he has the same thing happen to him. So
these jokes write themselves.
They write themselves. But first show in the new apartment, I got the mama mentality in the background. I don't need to have the background anymore. I have a normal wall. I can stand up. But thank you guys for tuning in to Wire Sports Podcast. Make sure you give us a download on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you to Sports Empire Network, Dylan Beek Sr., and the Wire to Wire family, fan base, and these two gentlemen that I get to do this podcast with every week. So have a phenomenal day. Great show. Take care, y'all.